Welcome to episode 30 of the Views from 314 Feet podcast. My name is Randy Wilkins, and as always, I'm joined by Yankees beat reporter for The Athletic, Chris Kirshner. Chris, how are you? I feel like we've done this already.
Yeah, a little inside baseball for those people listening. Randy and I recorded this morning, Monday morning, talking about how bewildering the Brian Cashman comments were this weekend about how they feel like Alex Verdugo is the best player for them to win, and how, there's basically no lane for Dominguez to play every day. And a few hours later, they decided that there is a lane for Dominguez, and now he's batting sixth and playing center field on Monday night. So here we are.
We had a nice conversation about the Niners versus the Jets. Chris was wearing his Jets jersey, and I'm still wearing my 49ers jersey. And now all of that's in the trash because the Yankees feel like making these decisions out of the blue with no real rationale or obvious logic to it. So we're now recording around 4:30 Monday before the Yankees-Royals game, and there was a tweet that was sent out by a couple people, Gary Phillips of the Daily News, and I know Mark Feinstein, and I know somebody else, and then Jack Curry jumped in. Who was that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, so how it works is at 3:10, usually every home game, you get into the clubhouse at 3:10. I usually look around to see if the Yankees have made any roster decisions, because you'll see, because they have a locker. And Jasson Dominguez had a locker in Yankee Stadium's home clubhouse today. It's different that with him because John Birdie's had a locker all year. He's been hurt for most of the year, but Dominguez hasn't had one in the Bronx this year. So when the reporter saw that, I'm off today, actually, so I'm not in the Bronx, but so it makes sense that it's a big deal when Dominguez has a locker, because he hasn't had one all year, which basically means that he is on the roster, even though at that point they hadn't announced what had happened.
Right. So the news started trickling out, and people started to realize that something was up. And then there was a lot of thoughts and guesses on what the moves would be. So we found out from the Yankees that obviously Duke Ellis was sent down Sunday to make room for John Birdie, and DJ LeMahieu is going to the IL with a hip impingement. Jasson Dominguez is taking his spot, and the Yankees designated Anthony Miskowitz. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Misavich, sorry. I was not pronouncing his name correctly. He's been designated for assignment to make room for Birdie on the 40-man, I believe. So Birdie was on the 60-day IL. So those are the moves. Also around that time, like around 3:10, normally that's when the lineup is posted for a 7 p.m. game, right?
So 3:10, it's usually posted 5 minutes before we get into the clubhouse. They changed it in the middle of the season. I don't know why. I guess to get engagement on social media before the reporters.
I think that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, so I noticed at 3:05 that the lineup hadn't been posted. It's always posted
right
5 minutes exactly 5 minutes before it wasn't posted, and then 3:06 came, and it's like there's no lineup. So in my head, I was actually at the movies. I saw Blink twice today, but I get the Twitter notifications, and I saw that it didn't happen yet. So I was like, I wonder if somebody's hurt. But I didn't know that Jasson Dominguez would be called up, because what I find interesting about the news of calling up Dominguez now is the circumstances from September 1st have not changed at all as they are today on September 9th. So I don't get the rationale now. They've been pretty clear about how they think Alex Verdugo is the best player for them to win. As of 2 days ago, when Brian Cashman spoke to the media in Chicago, he said that he feels that Verdugo is the best option for them. I don't know exactly what changed, because, again, the circumstances are the exact same. So it's very bizarre. Like, it's it's obviously the correct move. We've been saying that for a while now. I don't think Verdugo has been helping the Yankees win games. So let me be clear about that. Like, this is the correct move. It's just really funny to me that for the past 8 days, they've been saying we feel like Alex Verdugo gives us the best chance. And literally nothing has changed over these past 8 days, as opposed to on September 9th when the Yankees decided that Jasson Dominguez gives them an opportunity to win, because they've been very clear that he's going to be playing basically every single day. How that happens, I don't know. I assume that he's going to be playing left field. He was taking fly balls in left field before Monday night's game. He's playing center field today, but I assume if he's going to be playing every day that he's getting a lot of his game time in left field, because Aaron Judge plays center field, and Judge hasn't looked great in left field, and Juan Soto's obviously in right field, and Giancarlo Stanton is usually the everyday designated hitter. So I assume that he's going to be playing left field for the majority of the time. So I just think it's funny that they have all of a sudden figured out that, oh yeah, like this guy who has like a near 1,000 OPS in AAA and came on the scene last year and showed that he is very ready to hit major league pitching, is somehow now all of a sudden an option. Even though a few days ago, even Sunday afternoon, he wasn't a consideration. So I just think the whole thing is really funny.
I mean, I think the answer to that is how much you believe DJ LeMahieu is actually hurt, or if this is a phantom move. So, I mean,
but even still, like, he's not taking over, like, he's taking DJ's spot on the roster, but he's not taking DJ's playing time. So, like, someone else is going to have to lose their playing time, which I assume is going to be Verdugo, because he's not taking Judge's playing time, Soto's or Stanton's.
Right, but he's not even on the roster if LeMahieu doesn't get hurt. I mean, they had already made the Ellis move, presumably for Birdie. So,
right.
You know, like, you can't get playing time if you're not on the roster. So I think if LeMahieu doesn't get hurt, I still think we're not recording this part of the podcast again. So I'm choosing to, I mean, I don't think it's a phantom IL. I know a lot of people said that, but I do believe Boone said that LeMahieu's been feeling his hip for a while. He's actually going for an MRI. So there's something there. Like, I think the Yankees would be in trouble if this was a phantom IL, given the recent history of, or the other organizations trying to do it. Plus, there's really as you said, there's really no reason or circumstances for them to all of a sudden on September 9th say, well, let's put DJ LeMahieu on the IL and like give him a phantom IL stint when nothing had changed. So it's interesting to me, and I get it, like, you know, matchups or whatever, but the lineup for September 9th has Verdugo and Dominguez in the lineup with Stanton sitting, and Dominguez is batting 6. And it's interesting. I'm curious if that's how one of the ways that they're going to navigate this, based on like pitching matchups and handedness, and like they're going to sacrifice at Stanton at bats to keep Verdugo in there with Dominguez, which I just think is a horrible decision. Like, I don't understand this lineup to begin with. Like, Stanton should be playing regardless of if the pitcher is right-handed or left-handed. Alex Verdugo should not be playing. You know, even when this move is made, there's still something that doesn't make sense.
What I think is also funny is that Dominguez is batting in the middle of the lineup tonight, and Verdugo's batting last. So basically, you're saying in lineup construction, you're basically saying we think Verdugo is, quote unquote, the worst hitter in tonight's lineup. And yet the player who is called up ostensibly to replace Verdugo is batting ahead of him in the order. Like, none of it makes sense. Like, they clearly think that Dominguez is the better hitter, but yet they've been saying for the past 12 or 13 games, we love Verdugo's at bats. We feel like he's turning the corner. And the first opportunity they have to play the two together, Dominguez is higher in the order. I mean, like, come on.
And it's at the expense of a better hitter in Giancarlo Stanton. Like, why is Stanton sitting for Verdugo? I mean, it's just like, what did Stanton do wrong? Like, I mean, I know he's like, going into one of his like little slides, but Alex Verdugo is the walking embodiment of a slide this year. Like, he is a slide. So why is Giancarlo Stanton getting the night off for Alex Verdugo? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm happy that Dominguez is up. The circumstances are kind of weird. As you said, this should have happened already. I do want to be positive, that in the sense that I'm happy Dominguez is up, but it's kind of hard to navigate all of this.
I guess the idea with sitting Stanton tonight is Brady Singer's pitching for the Royals. Right-handed hitters have a 519 OPS against him, and lefties have an 851 OPS. But again, I don't think the splits necessarily matter here, because Verdugo hasn't been good. So like, I don't think the splits matter, and I'd rather take my chances of Stanton running into a pitch, because he's obviously always a threat to do that, regardless of how well a pitcher is with righties or lefties. I would, me personally, I think I'd rather take my chances with Giancarlo in the order rather than a light hitting left-handed bat.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Verdugo sucks this year. I mean, like, the splits don't apply to him. You could be righty, lefty. You could be ambidextrous. You can like somehow throw from the middle of your body and pitch in the major leagues. I don't think it matters with Alex Verdugo this year. I mean, he's platoon proof in the worst way possible. So, I mean,
he has a 671 OPS against righties this year. Verdugo, that is.
One day, I would love to find out what they saw in Alex Verdugo. I mean, it's just, and I don't even feel like I'm piling on him. He keeps playing. He's still there. And it's like, why? Like, even we have Dominguez up, which is great. That guy Verdugo still somehow like manages to get a spot in the lineup. I don't understand.
I think, I mean, as far as the thinking behind trading for Verdugo in the first place, I think the past couple of years has got in their heads that they needed more contact-oriented hitters. They struck out forget, like 40 times or something like that in the 2022 ALCS against the Astros. I think like that got in their heads, like, oh, like we need players who put the bat on the ball, because they were talking about like higher contact percentages basically since the moment the media arrived in Tampa for spring training. Anthony Volpe is a really good example of this. He lowered his power approach to be more of a contact hitter. We've seen this year, he doesn't really have the slugging as he did last year. And he's a worse hitter than he was last year, even though with his struggles, this approach just doesn't work. They traded for Alex Verdugo, who Boone has said on numerous occasions how he thinks Verdugo is one of the better bats ball guys in the league. Not all contact is good. Like, it's the same thing that they got caught up with DJ. DJ is a contact guy. Not all contact is good. So I think that is part of the thinking here. And Aaron Judge himself is a proponent of having guys in the lineup who make contact. He is a very old school thinker when it comes to how teams and lineups should be built. Not all contact is good, and we've seen that on numerous occasions this year.
Yeah, it's very interesting that a team that boasts like a large analytics staff and will tell you about it and all those things still has a manager that's rooted in old school traditional approaches to managing and constructing a lineup and going out to win a baseball game. I mean, there is overwhelming evidence that power wins in modern day baseball. You win the World Series when you hit home runs. That ALCS that you mentioned when the Yankees had all those strikeouts, the Astros won the World Series because they outslugged everybody. I mean, all those games that the Yankees lost, there was a big home run from the Houston side. Yordan Alvarez's home run to clinch Game 6 of the World Series against the Phillies is a memorable moment. It's a home run. They outslugged everybody. Arizona went on their run last year because they started outslugging everybody. Philly did the same thing in the year that they went to play the Astros in the World Series. It's just it doesn't work in modern day baseball. You can have one or two guys. Like I think when DJ LeMahieu was in his prime with the Yankees, his Yankees prime, he was a devastating hitter because he can put bat to ball so consistently, but he also slugged. I mean, he was driving the ball those first couple of years he was with the Yankees. I mean, Game 6 against the Astros in 19, he hits the biggest home run of the year before Altuve hit his home run. So, like, even then, like, DJ LeMahieu was effective because he had great contact skills, but he also was slugging the crap out of the ball. Now, that was probably because of the rocket ball, looking back on it, but he was still able to drive the ball with pretty good consistency. So, I mean, there's just no real argument for Alex Verdugo. But again, I'm going to be positive because we're re-recording this, and I'm just happy that Dominguez is in the lineup. And now, in the previous version of our discussion today about Dominguez, we had asked this question about how much time will Jasson need or should be given to make an impression on the Yankees when it comes to playing in the playoffs, not just being on the roster, but actually being in the lineup. And now he has about 19, 20 games, presumably, to do that. I'm not even sure if he's going to play all of these games to play out the string of the season. I guess a lot of it will depend on his performance. But let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, he does play 18 out of the 20 games or 18 out of the 19, 17 out of the 19 remaining games. Do you think that that's enough to convince the Yankees to put him in the lineup and avoid an IKF Peraza situation? Or do you think that he can play these games, but they're going to default to what we've seen pretty much all year when it comes to their lineup?
I mean, I think it's going to be performance-based, honestly. In 22, Peraza was up on September 1st. He didn't really play that much, honestly, when he was up. I think he played like 10 to 12 games. And obviously they reverted back to IKF in the playoffs before their season was on the line, and then they shifted away from that plan. But if Dominguez shows that he is ready, I'm not saying that he has to show that what he did last year when he had 4 home runs in 8 games and was on a tear. I don't think he needs to perform on that level. That'd be asking a lot. But if he can perform at a higher level than Verdugo has, I don't know how they can say, oh yeah, that's good and all, but Verdugo still gives us the best chance. So I still think it's going to be performance-based, but the bar is low for Dominguez to clear if it is going to be performance-based. And I don't 19 games is that's still a small sample size, right? But you can see, contact quality. How are his at-bats looking? Does he look overmatched? How is he looking in left field? Again, he's playing center field on Monday night, but I assume that he is going to get most of his playing time in left field. How does he look in left field in Yankee Stadium? It's big. He's never played there before. All those things I feel like are going to factor into the equation before October. And if he looks fine doing all those things, we know he's a better base runner than Verdugo. That is an area where right now he doesn't need to show anything but that. We know he is a better base runner than Verdugo. So how does he look defensively in left field? And are his at-bats and the quality of the at-bat better or as good as Verdugo. And if those things match, you have to give the nod, in my opinion, to Dominguez.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's interesting that he's batting 6 tonight. I mean, he's played 2 games and they put him smack dab in the middle of the lineup. So
and the first game was against Terry, who is probably winning the AL Cy Young this year. So they thought that highly of Dominguez already, that he was in the middle of their lineup in a game that, still had importance. It's not like just a meaningless game, even though it was in Williamsport. Like, it still counts for the standings. And they thought that highly of him, that for his season debut, he's hitting in the middle of their order from the right side of the plate, his worst side. And, he has a 511 OPS this year from the right side. And yet they still thought he was good enough to hit in the middle of their order, despite hitting from the right side of the plate that night.
I don't know what's going to go into this decision. There's so many things that feel like they're clashing with one another. I still can't figure out the rhyme or reason of their decision making. So I think it makes sense that it's performance based, but they've already put Dominguez higher in the lineup than Verdugo, and there's a responsibility that comes with it. So they're telling you what they think of him, then they obviously think highly of him that now that he's here. But, you also have to think about Stanton. It just seems like there's so many variables still at play here when there really doesn't need to be. Like, they're creating an issue that, in my opinion, doesn't exist. And obviously the easiest answer is to just sit Verdugo and he's here, meaning Dominguez. You are putting more responsibility on his plate in terms of lineup placement and what's expected from that lineup spot than Verdugo. So to me, you're telling us, and also the quotes of he has to play every day. So if he's here, he's going to play every day. So I would also think that this means Dominguez should be your guy in the playoffs. But who knows? They love Verdugo at the same time, and Verdugo's playing tonight. And Stanton is kind of like the victim of this like stubbornness with Verdugo. So I don't know what to think. I mean, this seems very much like a wait and see game one of whatever series they have in the playoffs and then go from there. I mean, it's hard to tell what they're thinking nowadays.
Yeah, it's because, they say one thing one day and then the next day it's like totally different. That's what I'm saying with like the rationale here. Nothing has changed with the circumstances. The circumstances on September 1st were the same on September 5th as they are on September 9th. Literally nothing has changed. Verdugo hasn't changed his approach. They want to talk about how his at-bats have looked better since the Washington series. He has 13 hits, 12 of them are singles. And he's not driving the ball. Balls are finding holes. That's not a sustainable approach. But yet they want to talk about how the at-bat quality is great, turning the corner, yada, yada. I mean, like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, again, it's the right decision that Dominguez is up. But I also think it's really funny that he is up after they've spent the past 8 days saying there's no lane for him. Verdugo is great. We love his at-bats. And then all of a sudden, Dominguez is hitting in the middle of their order.
Dominguez has to thank DJ LeMahieu's hip and the impingement that apparently is going on with him, because if that didn't happen, he'd be playing in Scranton right now. So DJ LeMahieu has made a contribution to the 2024 Yankees, it seems. So, so we're going to go to this break. We will come back and speak about Nestor and the bullpen. Keep in mind that we re-recorded this, so part of the conversation might refer to something that we spoke about in our previous recording of this. We are not going to re-record the entire episode for obvious reasons. So that's just a little bit of context. If we do make reference to a conversation that we had previous, it is part of the previous recording. So we will go to this break and we'll come back with the conversation about Nestor and the bullpen.